Well, one of the great things that happened in Baldwin County history was the story of when they moved the courthouse from Daphne, Alabama to Bay Minette. They had passed an act in the legislature that basically allowed that to happen, and under the law of the land back then, the county seat was where the county records were kept. So the county seat had moved from Blakely to Daphne, Alabama, and was there. There was a group of individuals that wanted to see the county seat come to Bay Minette because of the railroad and the timber industry. So they got a plan, and their plan was in the dark of night, of course this was back when we still had wagons and horses, was to go into the county courthouse at the time and steal the records and relocate them in Bay Minette. So the plan was to send the sheriff on a wild goose chase on a call, pursuit of a robber at the time, to get him away from the county jail, which is where the records were housed in the courthouse. A group of individuals went in that night by wagon, loaded all the records. Of course, it took them several hours to come from Daphne to Bay Minette. So one day the county seat was Daphne, and the very next day the county seat became Bay Minette. You know, I would hope that I would not be fooled the same way that the sheriff was back then, but I guess considering the communication of the time, anything would be possible. That's an interesting story. I'll back up on that one. A few months ago, I guess it was probably about the time that COVID hit, we started having lunch together because we couldn't go out in restaurants, right? And so the staff here at the sheriff's office started talking. And all of a sudden we realized that several members of our staff had started watching the show, The Tiger King. And we started sharing the different stories from that. And it's quite interesting because we actually have a kind of a little version of that in Baldwin County at our Alligator farm in Baldwin County. And the gentleman that runs that is a great friend of ours. And we started having conversations with him about the show, The Tiger King. And since that time, we've been encouraging him to start a show called The Alligator King here in Baldwin County. So we had a lot of fun watching that television show. Another thing that I really treasure about Baldwin County from the law enforcement perspective, what I do, Baldwin County has 14 municipalities, 12 of which have police departments. And we have a large group of retired law enforcement that moved to our county. In fact, when I was actually served in New York City during 9/11 as part of a special task force, I found out that one of the goals of a New York City cop was to get their 20 years in and move to Florida. And I would hear this over and over again as we would be at breakfast and at lunch and things of that nature. So one morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, because I was working night shift, I'm literally sitting around a group of NYPD officers from the Manhattan precinct, from the Bronx precinct, things of that nature. And they started this again because they knew that Alabama was close to Florida. And so we were talking, and I said, guys, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you always want to talk about move to Florida because of the beach. Why don't you move to Alabama? And it was like an epiphany. They looked at me and they said, Alabama's got a beach? And I said, yes, Alabama's got a beach. So when I came home after my deployment to New York City, I got with one of our local chambers of commerce and I actually built some packets of information. 3 of those detectives that I was talking to that night have since retired to Orange Beach and Gulf Shores. So that was a unique story to kind of go up to the big city and educate the folks a little bit about one of the great natural resources we have here in Baldwin County.